some leave coming up. Whether you're celebrating Christmas or not, hopefully it'll be a nice break. The hecticness of work, but yeah. Don't know if anyone here is in contact with their costing colleagues, but I work in costing in my trust. And let's just say the national cost collection has been interesting this year. So I'm definitely looking forward to a break. But yeah.
Could be worse. You could be part of planning, which is about to land, which I do.
Right. I mean, the one of the great things about costing that I have now pretty much forgotten is that we don't do month end. There's no month end every month, and I'm just kind of blissfully forgetting about that. But yeah, Becky, how are we doing in terms of numbers? Are we expecting anyone else, do you think? Or
I think this is it, I think.
Okay.
So we can get started.
Cool. Perfect. Right, let me just get my screens in order. So, introductions. I feel like everyone probably knows everyone by now. Is there anyone that's feeling like they're not sure? I feel like okay, I think we're probably okay. Hi, Lay. A black screen so far. Oh, hi there. Okay, cool. Right. So are you able to get the last meeting's minutes and actions up, Becky?
Yes.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Okay. So did anyone have anything they wanted to change or add or anything for the minutes? If you've had a chance to look through them, just put your hand up now. If not, feel free to email another time. So let's see what we've got on here. All ambassadors to complete a vision form. So we've had 11 responses, and I can't see on there who has responded and who hasn't. So we're going on an honesty-based system here. But 11 responses is good, and there's definitely lots of stuff there to work on. So if anyone here hasn't filled it out yet, or if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's just a three question survey to ask about what you think our group's kind of vision and mission should be, with some ideas of what we could have. So we can circulate the link to that again at the end of the meeting, and then I believe Becky, who's just joined, is going to be compiling that into a kind of summary vision and mission for us that we can look at the next meeting. So I guess we could keep that open for another week or two, and then pass it on to Becky to compile. Next action, review ambassadors' stock take and fill up for their organisations. Oh, I've not checked before the meeting actually how many we were up to. So again, ditto with that one, is if you've not done it yet, then have a look. That one, it will probably take you about 10 minutes. A series of, I think, maybe around 5 to 10 questions. I can't remember off the top of my head. Just about your organisations to get an idea of how things look across the patch. So we'll keep that open, I think. Then CE to update posters from HMA conference, feedback, and we'll send back for branding approval with new changes. How did that go, Claire?
They're all done. I sent them over to Becky after she sent through a slightly different logo that we needed to add. So we're just waiting for approval now.
Cool. What's the status on that, Becky? Do you know?
I just need to show them to Meg. I'll show them to her. I'll send them over to her today, actually. I think you might need to have to change the font, but I'm not sure, so I'll check on that one as well.
Okay, sounds good. And then hopefully we can get them sent out soon. I think Lois is sending out a kind of CFO update about all the different work streams. So that could be a good opportunity to send them out to CFOs to say, here's something we've produced already that you can start promoting our group with. Then finalise the EDI declaration. Oh, I see the next one is a separate one. Okay, finalise the EDI declaration. So Lois, where did we get to with that now? My mind is a bit scrambled from the NCC.
No, don't worry. All done with all the suggestions. It's on a 2-page document that I've whizzed back to you for approval.
Okay, cool. So I'll look at that after this meeting and check with Leigh as well. And then hopefully we can get that also sent out in your email to CFOs.
Sure.
Amazing, thank you. Right, next one, presentation on the Band 2 placement programme for the next meeting. We've got that on the agenda today. Presentation of inclusive recruitment toolkit when finished. That's for AFLAC whenever you guys have done that, but that's a big piece of work, so no anticipation for that to be ready today or anything. So we'll keep that kind of ongoing. Create and complete the survey for annual event ideas. I've not done this yet, so if we keep that open, I can do it early next week, if not this afternoon. RC to share details on what their organisations did for Black History Month. Becky Clegg, did you have anything to that?
I totally forgot that I promised to do that, so I will send something. Yeah, it's an easy one to do. Sorry.
That's all good. Cool. Complete the survey for the group vision. I think that might be the same as the one that we had up the top. Yeah. So we can probably get rid of that line. And then have separate meeting to decide on goals, priorities and timescales for actions. So I've not set this up yet, and I'm wondering whether we need this in addition to the work stream away day that's happening in January. Because it seems that I had a chat with Lois about the agenda for that day. Hopefully you all know what I'm talking about. This is a kind of HS Finance wants to set up an away day in person, face to face in mid-January, I think the 12th maybe, to have work streams come together, as well as people who aren't in the work streams but are like particularly senior leaders who are interested in what they're doing, to come together and talk about kind of goals and priorities. So I think that may be coinciding with that. And then if we want to have something afterwards that's a bit more focused on just our specific work stream and our specific actions, then we can do. So we'll keep that as a kind of tentative for now till we've had that work stream away day. Cool. Anyone have any questions on anything that we've just talked about before we move on? Okay. Cool. So the next section, and we're right on time. I feel like this never happens when I'm sharing. Keep the time to the agenda. It's the EDI survey run through. So thank you very much, Lois, for all of your help with compiling all the different we had some different versions of questions in different places, from the last year's survey that we did, and then from Jono's survey that he had, and some people submitted questions that we should put in. This morning I've been going through and kind of making some edits and playing around a bit with the structure. So I'm not completely finished with that, but I think it's probably worth us going through what we have now, to see what everyone thinks. And if I could ask everyone who's leading a particular work stream to think about, are there questions on here that relate to your work stream? If they're not, what questions would you want on there? What would be really useful for you to find out from our staff to aid you with developing your work stream? And if there are questions on there that relate to yours, are they asking the right things, or would you want them to be slightly different? So if everyone has a think about that while we're going through, and then either put comments in the chat or hands up, or make notes and send it on an email afterwards. Anything is fine. So let me get it up and share. Is that big enough? I feel like it maybe is not. It's quite small text on my screen. Can I zoom here? How's that?
That works.
Cool. So we've got a bit of a blurb at the start, which is kind of long, but yeah, let me know if you think it's too long, but hopefully it's kind of introduced the group and explained things. So maybe I'll read it out so that I'm not then going too quickly or too slowly for people. So welcome to the 2024 EDI Service from the South East NHS Finance Inclusion and Diversity Ambassador Group. A group of enthusiastic finance professionals from providers, commissioners and national NHS teams dedicated to improving EDI within South East NHS organisations or finance teams. It's a group we're extremely passionate about. It's our mission too, and then we'll put in our group mission once we have that kind of decided. To do this, we need your help. Unfortunately, it's hard to understand the current needs and opinions of our colleagues or to measure how these change over time because there's little to no data collected in this area. We have therefore pulled together an anonymous survey to help us understand how we can best make improvements for you and support the EDI agenda. Everyone in a South East NHS team. Now, this is a point actually that is open to your opinions about whether we should include only finance people or anyone who sits under a CFO. I know that we are kind of predominantly a finance group, but it kind of feels a bit like, do we want there to be a boundary for the sake of there being a boundary and only work on finance teams? Or, you know, is a lot of our work applicable across lots of different corporate teams, most of which will sit under a CFO's remit? So I've gone with the latter of we may as well get more input from a broad range of people who kind of the way that we do our work is quite similar in that we're not like patient facing staff, but very open to people's opinions on that. So everyone in South East NHS team that is under a CFO's remit is welcome to respond. This may include a number of corporate services, including procurement, contracting, estates, IT, information or business intelligence, and of course, finance. We are keen for everyone to respond, no matter whether they typically get involved in EDI initiatives. Please share amongst your colleagues and encourage them to respond. Then we'll fill in that data once we know it. And then this is one particularly to ask you about, Becky, from one NHS finance point of view, but also maybe Stuart from the South East Finance Academy point of view, and just in general anyone who's done a survey and knows about privacy stuff. But I feel like because we're collecting like sensitive information, whilst it is anonymous, we need to be like quite clear about how it's going to be used and things. And I don't know anything about this. I've just kind of written this as how I think it should be, but I don't know. So I'll read it out and then we can talk about how to get it right. So I've put, this survey is anonymous. Your name and email address will not be recorded. An effort will also be made to remove any identifiable information you include in your written responses. The full results will then be shared with the South East I&D Ambassador Group and the South East Finance Academy, which is a regional branch of One NHS Finance that the group sits under, to continue to inform our strategy and action plan. An aggregated version of the results for each organisation will be shared with CFOs/DOFs in order to demonstrate what the anonymous experiences and views of their team are, and to advocate for substantive change. This aggregated version will not break down responses by demographic information asked in the first section of the survey to minimise the risk of someone's responses being identified. What do people think about that? Do you think, I don't know anything really about IG apart from like what you get trained on in e-learning. So, Stuart?
So the only issue we've had with that I've had experience of is the bit where you talk about sharing it by organisation. We've occasionally had challenges when we've collected data where the organisations are small, and so, you know, however you aggregate that data, there is a possibility, I guess, in some small organisations that people might be identifiable.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure I mean, that's a comment and a sort of challenge that we've got. I'm not quite sure what the solution is to it as I sit here at the moment, but we probably just need to give that a little bit of thought, because we will have organisations, I guess, where it is small numbers of people.
I wonder if we can include a statement on that on the end that says effectively that you know, we've explained how it will be aggregated, but where there are small organisations, you should be aware that this may mean that you could be identified from your responses.
I think we need to be a bit more careful even than that, really.
Right, okay. Becky?
I suppose from an IG perspective, there's a few other things about kind of where the data be stored, how long it'll be stored for, and the kind of assurance it won't be used for any other purpose. But it sort of starts to get to be quite a long statement then, so you could always do a link to a statement. And then just in terms of getting the terminology right, Natasha, that I know there's some stuff on our intranet which is around the staff survey and privacy, which will be taken from what they do. I mean, there's probably some wording you could lift from there if you wanted to spend more time on this. But it's a bit of a it's what the more you know, the more you know, the more you don't know, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Nikki?
I was going to suggest the same thing. The staff survey got remit, hasn't it, around what they do in terms of size of teams. But also, would it be dependent on how many responses you get from that organisation as well? So if you only get 4 responses from that organisation, you're going to be able to identify people as well.
If they knew who had responded, I guess. If I'm
Depends if
understanding
you're going to
correctly.
break it down by if you're going to break it down by organisation, and you
Yeah,
get limited response from an organisation, you're going to be able to identify people.
So say you had like an organisation of, I don't know, 30 people in their finance team, and you had one response from that organisation, and that one response was sent back. I mean, you'd know one person's opinion, but you wouldn't. How would you be able to work out who that one person out of 30 was?
It's what information are we collecting about them? Are we collecting sort of ethnic origin or that sort of thing? So
what I tried to say, and maybe this isn't super clear in how I've written it, but effectively this aggregated version will not break down responses by demographic information asked in the first section of the survey. So effectively, in this first section, we've got all those kinds of demographic questions that you'll have seen before. And the intention is that when we send things to CFOs by organisation, that's the only way that the data will be broken down. It won't be given like, here's all the demographic information of that person and their responses. It will just be like, here's the responses of the people in your team.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Could put the link reset. So one thing I was wondering, Becky, Gen V, is does 1HS Finance already have a kind of stock privacy statement that they use for surveys kind of this nature? If you're still there, Becky, I don't know, you've got your camera on. Maybe not. I'll ask her later. Cool. Thank you everyone for your input on that. Then next one is just any clarification or questions, then they can contact me. Mark.
Yeah, sorry, just on that bit above, whilst we say that every effort will be made to take out identifiable information, do we want to I'm just wondering, do we not need to make advise that people shouldn't be including identifiable information in their responses anyway?
Yeah, I can definitely put that in.
Both sides, I think.
Is that okay? Yeah. And then we extend our deepest thanks to each of you for dedicating your time and expertise to contribute to this survey. It's that's of great importance and collectively aim to forge a more inclusive future for all. Is there anything else anyone thinks that is missing on this little blurb? Or are we kind of okay? Oh, so demographic questions. So yeah, the first one, obviously, if we're going to be able to send it out to different organisations, then we need a list of all of those organisations as a kind of drop down, because otherwise if people just put obviously different ways you can write, you know, acronyms or whatever, it just makes it easier. So best place to get that list, is it do you Stuart?
Probably me. We're talking about just for the southeast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got
Any and every southeast NHS organisation. Cool.
I can share that.
Right. Amazing. Perfect. So if we could put an action for you for that on the minutes, that'd be great. Just a note as well, actually, the reason why we're wanting to break this down by organisation is because when we presented the last year's survey to CFOs, they were all very, very keen for that, and a bit sad that they didn't have it. And I think it does give a good opportunity to ask questions that are a bit more focused on people's opinions and what would be meaningful for them to change in their finance department, than say the staff survey asks. So I think that's the intention behind it.
Each organisation achieves minimum 40% of the response rate. So with the organisation.
Yes, that's the other thing. Yeah, exactly. That's an action we've given to CFOs to have at least 40% response rate. And I know that we're asking for other teams as well as finance, but I think we only really know what our total number of finance staff is. We don't know about the other teams, so I think we'll base that metric off finance teams, but say that other people are welcome to join. So then asking which team people were working, so we can record that metric. Anyone think there's any other ones that are relevant that sit under CFOs that I've forgotten?
Payroll.
Payroll. Would that come under finance, or would that be separate?
I suppose that my directorate is finance, but then our procurement team's directorate is finance as well.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's up to you. You can just put it down as finance.
How about that?
Fine.
Cool. If anyone thinks of any other ones, let me know. Olbach?
Yeah, no, it's not another one. It's just a comment. I'm only thinking personally to me. So I don't know. It depends on how people define some of their teams or not. But we're saying that this information wouldn't be part of the breakdown that goes to the organisations, or is it? The point of the questions, contracting teams can be very small.
Okay, right. So no, then.
I would say contracting is probably the smallest team out of all of the ones listed.
Okay.
I
So
wouldn't mind betting.
let's not.
So I suppose it's just what level of I don't know. I don't know the right answer to that one, but
Becky?
I think it'd be good to have some breakdown, but maybe we could just have like pure finance and other. Just group it that way, maybe. Yeah, because otherwise you're going to get quite an interesting view, aren't you? Because some CFOs have got loads of different functions.
I agree. I think probably we're just stick to core finance and other finance or others.
Do you think we should, in this question, just have options for finance and other?
Yeah, core finance.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone happy with that? Cool. Right. And we've got a question here that Jono had on his survey he sent around his team, which I thought was kind of interesting, which is effectively, are you comfortable completing this survey? And I think that was the intention behind it, was to encourage a higher response rate. And then if people are like, actually, no, I can't be bothered, or no, I'm not comfortable, or whatever, they can say no, and then it skips to the end of the survey. It just kind of gets a bit of a higher response rate and has, I don't know, yeah. Do people think that this is good one to include?
Yeah, you should be asking for consent anyway. So yeah, that's
okay. Cool.
Good.
Is it then appropriate to ask why people? So basically, this has got kind of branching on it. So if someone ticks no, then it shows them this question, and then it goes to the end of the survey. If someone ticks yes, it doesn't show them this question. Would you say that along that line of we need to ask consent, it's appropriate to ask someone why not?
Yes, I would think so.
You would think so?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Is there an option not to complete that though?
Yes, it's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, then we've got demographic questions. So age, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation. Feel free to stop me at any of these if you think the categories need to be changed. I will go through and double check all of them compared to, like, I don't know, survey standards at the moment. Like, for example, I put a note on here that I want to go through and check these are correct. This is one that I don't typically see in demographic questions. I personally thought it was quite an interesting, I think Jono had put it in. I thought it was quite an interesting one to ask and get a bit of a picture of. What do other people think? Becky?
I think it's would be quite interesting. I think for some people there's not a yes or no for bilingual people who've grown up with 2 languages in the family.
Yeah.
That's all I would say. No, from my own experience, yeah.
Yeah. What do we think? How should we encompass that in the responses? Could have like a bilingual option, maybe?
What's I suppose what's the purpose of the question?
I was about to ask that as well.
Yeah.
I think I would say the purpose of the question is to think about, are we supporting people? Are we supporting people, or are we discriminating against people in any way based on their fluency of the English language?
So you could ask a question, do you consider that you are a fluent speaker of English?
Okay.
Yes or no, maybe something like that.
Is that covered by the next question? I was just peeking down to the next question. You probably want to have one overriding question that covers it, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So we could put that in and then get rid of the second one. How do you feel about this, Lay?
I still feel a bit weird, to be honest,
Yeah?
with this question.
Okay.
We only ask this question, say you come for an interview and you go through assessment day. We ask if English is your first language, and you, if not, and then we may consider give you extra time, something like that. But in a kind of working environment, if you're doing the role, so isn't that by default you assumed your English language is good enough to, I don't know, it's just I'm still a bit struggling about the purpose, what's the purpose of this question.
Yeah. Maria?
Well, also, I think someone who's learned English, they may be brilliant at speaking it, but they may need time to process what they've heard as well. So I don't think that question's covering that part, because it's about communication, isn't it?
Okay. Becky?
So if we're talking about inclusion, I know that there are cases where, although someone's English is more than adequate to do the job, it has resulted in a lack of inclusion and or bullying. You know, they may have been under scrutiny from the manager around grammar, around how they speak. I mean, I have been involved in a case recently that included some of those things. So although, yeah, absolutely accept Lay's point that, you know, if you're here, then you've passed it, you know, you've demonstrated a level of fluency that's appropriate for the job. It doesn't mean that there wouldn't be any issues around inclusion. And but whether it's something that we particularly want to focus on, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think my perspective on it was similar to yours, Becky. That's what I was I was worried about happens in our workplaces, and so thought it would be an interesting, because like with all of these demographic questions, the reason why we've got them in there, in my opinion, is so that when we ask the following questions about like people's experiences at work, or whether they feel like their workplace is inclusive in lots of different respects, we'll see them in a minute, you can slice and dice that by demographics. So you can see, is this particular demographic being discriminated against with relation to career progression, or in relation to being involved in decision making in their trust, or whatever it might be.
I guess it's more about the, you know, maybe not so much how the individual considers themselves to be sufficiently fluent. It's kind of what other people's view of that is. That's the issue, isn't it? So
yeah. And maybe the way that this question is asking is implying more the former, and being like, yeah, maybe it's not necessarily asking it in the right way, and that's perhaps why you're feeling a bit tentative about it, Lay. And why I can definitely see the reason why you would feel that way and wouldn't want someone to read this and think that.
Yeah, but I think as English is not my first language, so maybe it's just personally I feel that's the, I don't know, it's a weird feeling when looking at that question. But I think I do hear why you want to put it there, and I think in a way it does help. You know, if you look at this question together with the rest of the response, it may help with understand the needs of other people more. So, you know, after you explained, I think I can appreciate that question.
It'd be possibly teased out later, but I wonder if there's something more broad around communication barriers in general, rather than specific to English.
Yeah. So
is that just losing the, I don't know.
That's a good point. What about neurodiverse and
So maybe we could take this question out of this section so that we don't, because the thing is, you know, through conversation and through us talking about it now, Lay, you can see the reason why we may be asking the question. However, we don't have that opportunity in this survey. Someone else is going to see it and may feel similar to you, and that's not okay. So maybe we take this out and then think about putting a different question in later on that asks about communication, and do you feel you've been discriminated against based on your communication style, or whatever it might be. Yeah. Cool. Oh, Maria, sorry, you had your hand up.
No, it was a similar comment. Rather than probe more about personal aspects, ask the question that you want to ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Cool. That was a really good discussion. Thank you. So I'll take this out and let me just make a note to add in question. Okay. So then there's a question on religion and belief system. This is again another one that isn't typically asked in these kinds of questions, and is kind of similar to that other one in that it's I suppose this one for me is a bit more about like assessing whether our workplaces are suitably or appropriately allowing people to practice their religion. For example, things like prayer rooms, or allowing people to have time to pray in certain times of the day, or whatever it might be. Again, with this, if you guys think this is a bit of a weird way to have it, and you'd prefer it to be a separate question asking more directly that thing later on, then that's fine. Marina?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think, just thinking from my point of view, if I'm answering a survey, it is, I do find it probing when I'm being asked a lot of personal information before we've actually got to the point of the reason why I want all this information. So yes, later, I think, in my opinion, and I'd want to say something on the lines of, do you have a desire, or do you want to actively practice your religion at work?
Okay.
Because you in many circumstances you may not need to reveal your religion at work, so it wouldn't be necessary in that respect.
Okay. Mark.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was in a similar vein. So I suppose it was trying to understand the purpose of the question. And if someone said yes, it's kind of and what. So I think that was focused around, are you are you able to practice your religion, or there's something around, are you prevented doing what you want to do, or does your workplace facilitate or cater for whatever you might want to do, whatever that might be? Because obviously it's going to be specific to your own religion, isn't it? Potentially.
Okay. Cool. Shorthand notes there, but I will construct it into something better. Thank you. Lay?
I actually have a suggestion. I think why not, for the survey, we just go to the key questions, and at the end of the survey, we will say something. We would like you to tell us a bit about you. If people would like to answer some of those questions, they will answer like the religion, like English language, and if not, they can skip that section.
Yeah. That sounds good. Yeah, let's do that. Put a note to move it down. Oops. Let's stop writing. Okay. Anyone have anything else they want to say on that question, or any other ones we've done so far? Okay. You consider yourself to have a disability. How would you categorize your disability? These categories I think were on Jono's survey before, so I wanted to go through and check them. Do you consider yourself to be neurodiverse? Are you a carer? And do you have any dependents under the age of 16 years? So does everyone feel happy with having these questions in the survey and sort of agree with the purpose of why we want to have them in there? In last year's survey, we had, I think, just one question, which was, do you consider yourself to be from a minority group or community, just in general? And it was a yes or no, and that was it. I think the reason for this was to be able to see if particular groups are discriminated in particular ways. But yeah, what do people think on this?
It might be worth adding a comment like that before answering these questions. So, you know, something on the lines of, thanks for completing the survey. In order to protect yourselves, it'd be helpful if you'd give us some more information about you. Something on that like that. Okay.
So I can put that in the sort of description at the top of this section when I move it down.
Yeah. So then I think that that further information might seem more relevant then if it's badged that way.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you. Right. So next section I've kind of put to be about your department, and then later on I think we've got a section about sort of yourself and your experiences. And you know, this is definitely a draft, and I was literally moving things around and changing things this morning, so there may well be things that don't quite make sense that we need to change. And I thought it could be good because there's quite a few references to diversity and inclusion throughout this section to just define firstly what they mean. So I wanted to take some time to actually find a good definition of both of those. So would you consider your department to be diverse? Feel free to stop me at any point, by the way, if you think there's anything that's not relevant or not helpful, or what's the purpose of it. Would you consider your department to be inclusive of all diverse individuals? Do you feel you have enough colleagues of similar backgrounds, cultures, and or beliefs to yourself in your department? Do you feel you have enough leaders of similar backgrounds, cultures, and or beliefs to yourself in your department? Do you feel your department celebrates diverse people and ideas? Would you advise a friend of similar demographic background to yourself to work in your department? If you raise a diversity related concern, do you think your bosses would take it seriously? Do you think diverse individuals have a say in decision making in your department? Do you think promotions and or informal or formal career sponsorship or progression opportunities are given to a diversity of individuals in your department? Do you think your department supports the needs of its disabled employees, and the same for neurodiverse employees? So these two questions are similar to the one above, which was more broadly. This one. I think Lois put them in there because you're quite keen on the disability network and in general. And I do think that purely anecdotally from my perspective, disability and neurodiversity are things that need to be focused on more. But what do people think about splitting it out and asking those in particular? Are there any other ones people would want to ask more about? Or no strong feelings?
I suppose we could put it out to the person doing the survey and ask, have a free text for ask them if there are other diversities that they feel need support in their department.
Okay. Put it up here. It's hard to know exactly what wording to use sometimes. Can anyone think of a better wording? I'll have a think because in terms of it's better to have options for people to put in an other box so that there's in terms of analysing the results. So I'll have a think about which options to include in here.
Yeah, so it's almost a sub to the question above, obviously, isn't it?
Yeah. And then I can include disabled colleagues and neurodiverse colleagues on there and then take these two out, maybe. Everyone happy with that? Or any big objections? Yeah. Okay. Do you feel diversity and inclusion is a priority area for your finance department? How would you best describe your department's efforts to support and promote EDI? Don't worry if these aren't completely accurate for your department, just choose one that's the closest description. I thought this could be an interesting way to kind of get a gauge of where different organisations are at. I came up with these today, very happy to change them around if people think they should be. You have a read and let me know what you think. What are people thinking about these? Mark?
Do we need to get anything in there about it that there might not be EDI at the finance level, but there is at a trust level?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. I've messed up my levels now. I have to change them all. Right, so put level 1 to be. No, it's all good. I've also just realised the time, so I've not done very well at chairing this meeting. But I guess it kind of is what it is. I think it's very useful for us to go through this one by one. Not. Okay, I'll change those levels later. People feel okay about that? Okay. And then we've got some free text at the end. So what do you think your department organisation can do to be more diverse in the future and then more inclusive? And then has your department or organisation implemented an EDI initiative that you particularly liked? What is it? And can you explain the reason behind your choice? So those are currently all the things on the on your organisation. And then we've got a section on you and your experiences. So perhaps we can go through the you and your experiences one now. I think we'll probably be able to finish that by 1:30. And then if people can give any feedback on particular questions they want about their action that they're leading on, maybe you can email them to me afterwards and I can include them. So you and your experiences. Are you a member of a work-based EDI group or staff network? Why are you not currently a member? So these were the ones that came up most often in the last survey that we did last year. Can anyone think of any other ones that might be good to include on there?
If we're making it mandatory, shouldn't we have one that says, I am already a member of the group?
I believe it is branched, so this question only comes up for anyone who says they're not. But I'll double check that. Would your line manager allow you time to participate in said group or network? Stuart?
So I was just thinking in relation to the previous question, and perhaps you've covered it now by putting line manager. So why are you not currently a member? There isn't an option there that says I don't feel supported by my line manager. Don't know if you could.
Well, we could have that and then get rid of the question below. But you're right that it's definitely a key thing. Okay. Get rid of this one.
I wonder if it's line manager or department rather than line manager, or we put line manager department.
I mean, yeah, we could have two separate ones. I just need to think about the branching to make sure that this is okay. How has your identity with respect to any of your demographic characteristics affected your experience as an employee in your department?
Sorry, I just wanted to quickly just go back to the previous one. That's all right. There's I don't know if we need to add something in like we haven't joined because there isn't a relevant network for me.
So do you think that will be covered by don't know of any groups I could join? Or do you think that would be separate? Oh, do you mean like, I don't know,
for example, say like there's no women's network where I am, or things like something like that. So
okay, yeah. There's no. Okay. Oh yeah. So how's your identity with respect to any of your demographic characteristics affected your experience as an employee in your department? Positively, negatively, mixed, neutral, not applicable. Don't know why we've got not applicable there. Yeah, okay. Might get rid of that one. But maybe put an unsure. And then providing details of that. I feel felt left out or excluded from certain activities in the workplace. Do you feel valued for the unique contribution you make to your organisational team? A scale of 1 to 10, what extent are you able to bring your full self to work each day? In the past year, have you experienced, witnessed and or reported any form of discrimination within your workplace? I like this one because last year we just said experienced or witnessed, but now we've got reported in there too. I think that will be very interesting. And then it's asking if you have, what was the basis of that discrimination? So we've got some different categories on here. Other as well, unsure, prefer not to say, and not applicable. I think these categories were put on mostly based on the 9 protected characteristics. And then I added that one. But does anyone think there's anything else we should have on there?
Presumably you can select multiple on this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah, I assume the same for the one above.
Yes, you can. Okay. And then a text box for people to detail those experiences, but it's not mandatory. Then there's a short section on wellbeing, which I really like that Jono had in his survey, which I thought was quite a nice reflection for people. Feel emotionally strong and resilient. Find it easy to express my emotions in positive, constructive ways. I'm resilient and can bounce back after a disappointment or problem. I love and accept myself who I am. I thought that was quite interesting. What are people generally in supportive of this section?
Sorry, can I just check on the one above? So I suppose it's the purpose and what would be done about it. An answer to that question could be very detailed. And do we want people to actually do that if they've gone through a formal process already? And what would we do with something that ends up being very detailed?
So that's a good question, and we had it. It's actually a good point because we should put in a little sort of description underneath this question, which is what we had last year. We asked this question last year, and we had a description that basically answered those questions. I can pull it across, but effectively, the results of this question in particular were very important last year in the survey, and the reason was because when we presented it to CFOs, I mean, in the description we had said that anything non-identifiable could be used to, like, sort of as a quote, anonymously to present to finance leaders. So we presented some of those quotes that were pulled off from people's surveys that, you know, didn't identify them in any way, but just described an experience they had, and they were very moving, and people were very CFOs, I think, were quite shocked by some of the things they read. So I would say the purpose of this is very important because it kind of it allows people an opportunity to be completely open and honest about experiences they actually have, and it kind of demonstrates where we are at, if that makes sense. What do you think?
Yeah, I suppose I'm thinking of worst case. I don't know if there needs to be something that offers support. Where do we direct them to, or ensure that they're taking it somewhere appropriate if they haven't already? I suppose is predominantly where I'm thinking of. If we've got something quite, yeah.
Yes, we had. It's this one here last year. We had a link to Freedom to Speak Up Guardians, I think, here. So yeah, basically this is what we wrote. Would you be happy with this description?
Okay, right, yeah.
So, anecdotal evidence is key to understanding the reality of where we currently are. Discrimination people face that impacts staff members feel as a result. And then we will not investigate reported problems directly. So if there's something that needs direct resolution, please go through your organisational channels. I'll let you read the rest.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Okay, cool. I will copy that across. I'll do that in a minute, actually, because I've just realised we've run over. So, okay, before we all go, there is the speaking up section, which we wanted to put in because that came up quite a bit in the survey last year, and we want to understand more about the culture of that in different organisations. So if people could have a think, firstly about the actions they lead and what questions in relation to those do they want to have in the survey, what would be useful for them for their next steps, and secondly about speaking up, what questions could be good for that, and thirdly about any other things. So I'll share the link to this. Hopefully it will update as I edit it, because there's still some edits I'm going to make. And yeah, thank you very much for participating in that. And I'm sorry that it took so long and we didn't have any time for the rest of the agenda items, particularly you, Lois, for preparing a presentation, but thank you. We can do it next time.
No problem.
Becky?
I would just wanted to ask if the background of the hands up, is that part of what people will see as the survey?
It is, yeah.
I think that it's a whole, well, a difficult thing to get right, isn't it? But it didn't seem very, at least ethnically diverse. From like my kind of viewing of it, and when I say it's not that great, I could probably find a kind of something that's a bit more less white. They might not be white people, but the palms are white, and not everyone has a white palm, I guess.
That's fine. We'll put a neutral background on.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's no need for us to have the hands. So yeah, we'll just make it neutral. Cool. So timescales, I will look at this probably early next week to try and finish things off and send a link out to everyone. And then maybe, I mean, I know it's Christmas, so this is difficult. People have got leave, but I'll put in the email how long people have to sort of give me your comments, but maybe a couple of weeks, because it would be great to get this out early January, I think, with Lois's email to CFOs. Cool. Anyone have anything else I know we're running over, but anything else they wanted to raise this meeting? I'm sorry that I've completely hijacked it. Stuart.
And I'm sorry that, and now that it's overrun, and I wanted to put something in. So a very, very quick, if we don't have time, skip it. We're trying to put together the program for all of the other events that we're running. I know we're really keen to run an ED&I day, workshop, away day, something. I would like to try and slot something else into the diary in early June. Do we have a preference as to when we would like to? I know we talked about June.
Yeah, I think it was June, mid-June maybe. I can check my notes.
Could you perhaps just drop me a line afterwards and just I would like to put something else into one or other of those early mid-June. So if you've got a preference, just let me know. Okay, cool. I won't take any more time.
Cool. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming, everyone. Anyone have anything else before we go? I
was just saying, if you want everyone for June, we just need to check the audit submission deadlines and audit committees and that kind of thing, because our deadlines are in June now. So yeah. What dates do you know? I was just looking. This should be etched in my brain. But I think it's the end of June, isn't it? Final account submission is actually 28th June. So it won't, everyone's got different deadlines, haven't they? And not everyone's impacted specifically by that one. But I was just thinking maybe Lay particularly, and certainly me with audit committees and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I will check with Lay again.
Yeah.
To see. Cool. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, bye.
Hope you have a lovely festive period and have some well-deserved rest. And thank you very much for all your input this year.
Thanks.
You too.
Thanks.
Thanks.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.